Hey guys, it's Dante here at Ferrigno Freedom Channel, coming back to you one more time. I'm gonna make something in the crock pot today. And what I'm gonna make today, I'm gonna make a chuck roast and some brisket together in the crock pot. Now this is a couple of my favorite meats because neither of them are really that tough. And the crock pot makes them so good. But a lot of you have asked me about my method of keeping them in the crock pot for longer periods of time and letting them sit on warm. So I started looking into some information on that, and I was a little bit concerned about some of the information I had shared with you before after doing a cursory look at some things about safety when it comes to food cooking. So initially I thought, well, I'm gonna put a weight on this for a moment. And I put something out on the Facebook page saying I don't recommend you doing it the way I've been doing it. And that's cooking it in the crock pot, you know, at the normal time, 6 to 8 hours, which is what I plan to still cook these two for. I'm gonna be cooking them for 6 to 8 hours. Well, more like 8 hours, period. Because I do wanna let them cook long enough to get soft. I'm actually on my way to work here very shortly. So it's real early. As a matter of fact, it's 5 in the morning and I gotta leave here at 5:30. But I'm gonna have Katie turn these off at right at 8 hours, even though I'll be home about 9 hours from now. Some of the recommendations I've seen say not to keep them on warm for more than 2 to 4 hours. And the reason they say they recommend that is because of bacterial growth. However, I've done a lot of looking into what's known as the temperature danger zone. Your danger zone is 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 135 degrees Fahrenheit according to most standards, although some of them are between 40 degrees and 140 degrees. These just came out of the refrigerator at 38 degrees, so the key is to get them up to 140 degrees as quickly as possible. I've had them defrosted all night because one of the other things that I read about was the problem that you have with cooking meats from frozen in a crock pot is that they stay in that danger zone just a little bit too long when they're going from frozen to 140 degrees. So I've decided not to cook them from frozen. However, the manufacturer does state on most of these crock pots that you can cook them from frozen as long as you set them at the right temperature. But because I want to leave these sitting for 8 hours, I don't want to cook them on high. I want to cook them on low. That way, they're going to get to the temperature that they need to be at that allows them to get nice and soft without staying in the danger zone too long, so that you don't have to worry about any bacteria forming. So let me grab some of my Redmond smoked salt, and I'm going to get them ready to go. I'm using some of my favorite cherry Redmond smoked salt today. This has become my go-to for just about everything. When cooking in the crock pot, if you want to add a little bit of flavor, smoked salt's a great way to do it. Both of these are going to come out wonderful. I just can't wait to get off of work. Sometimes people ask me, how do you get through the whole day without eating anything when you got to go to work? A lot of times I would have done this at night, the night before, so that I would have this ready already in the morning. So now both the chuck roast and the brisket are in the crock pot, and they're only coming up to about right here. They're about a little more than halfway. And because they're not frozen, I don't need to add any water. I'm going to set these on low. One of the things the manufacturer recommends if you're going to cook it from frozen is to pour a cup of water in before you put the meat in. Right before you put the meat in. Not to preheat the crock pot or anything. Just says add water and then put the meat in. It's been actually quite confusing looking into all the temperature settings that you need to have on this, because you got different groups that have different recommendations. Like the Florida state recommendations for the danger zone are that 41 degrees to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. But then the FDA says 40 degrees to 140 degrees. But either way, they're very close to each other, so the idea is to get them through that danger zone as quickly as possible, whether you're heating them up or you're cooling them down. The biggest concern I had when I was talking about this on the Facebook page the other day actually had more to do with some of the power issues that I haven't considered when I've been cooking it for overnight periods and things like that, is if you have a power outage in the middle of the night, you may not even know about it. So it might have sat for an hour or two without you knowing that the power was off. And that could have caused it to sit in the danger zone for a little while. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. So if you've got a way of knowing whether or not the power went out, like maybe if you have a regular digital clock on the wall or something that's not plugged into the internet, where if the power goes out, like for instance this clock on my microwave oven or the clock on my stove here, if the power goes out, those won't be on the right time. So that'll let me know, oh, there was a power outage. But anyway, I'll come back and talk to you about my safety concerns when I get back from work. I've got 15 minutes to get dressed and get out of here, so I'll cover this when I get back from work. All right, so I'm back from work. It is now 3:45 in the afternoon. I had to review what I talked about this morning so I can make sure I don't cover some of the same stuff twice. But the first thing I want to do is take a look at this food, because I'm hungry. I probably sound a little bit more excited right now than I did this morning. It's tough to get up and jump out of bed at 5 in the morning and be ready to talk about all this stuff sometimes. But I've had a great day, so I'm ready to come back and finish talking to you about this. Now, Katie already mixed up this meat for me so that it's been cooking at an even temperature. One of the things you want to do is make sure that the meat on the bottom rotates with the meat on the top. But you also don't want to be opening up the lid too often, because every time you open that lid, it adds 30 more minutes to your cook time. 6 hours would have been enough, but that's one of the reasons I do it to 8 hours. So let's pull some of this out and see how it is. I am ready to eat. So let's go ahead and give this a try real quick, and then we'll talk some more about safety. Man, that is so good. Oh, a nice big fatty piece. Man, a lot of times when I cook in the crock pot, I want to add a little bit more salt afterward, because when it sits in the crock pot for several hours, all of the salt just kind of absorbs into the meat, and you don't get that salty flavor or that even that smoky flavor that you're looking for with the Redmond smoked salt. This is fantastic. Now, one of the other things I found out about leaving the food in there for longer periods of time, and this is ultimately the reason why I'm worried about leaving my food in there too long, is that the recommendation for keeping food warm, if you're going to keep food like this warm for a long period of time, is to keep it between 140 and 160 degrees, roughly. It varies depending on which guideline you're looking at, but none of them go over 160 degrees and none of them go under 140 degrees. This way we're covering all the bases. The thing about the crock pot though, and some of them are going to be different. Some of them you might even be able to set the temperature, and that might give you the flexibility to leave it in there longer. But this particular model crock pot is just your basic low-end model crock pot where you just have a warm setting and you don't have a temperature setting. Well, on this particular model, it happens to be 165 to 175 degrees. Slightly more than I would want to keep this on warm. Now, why is that a problem? When you overcook your meat, you denature it. It takes away some of the nutrients that are in the meat. I want all the nutrients in this meat. I don't want to lose my nutrients because I overcooked it. So that's why I'm not going to be leaving them in there as long as I used to. Now, I am going to reuse those juices that are in there. When I decide to put this away to refrigerate, I'm going to put all the juices in a jar too. So the next time I want to cook, if I want to add a little bit of fat to my meat, I'm going to take that jar out and add it to the crock pot as well with whatever I'm cooking next, so that it will come out delicious, juicy, and fatty, just the way I like it. One more thing, something I haven't really tried yet, but I've heard about people doing this, is cooking meats that are normally seared, like steaks, in the crock pot. I love the way a good steak comes out, especially comes out of my air fryer or off the grill, but I haven't put it in the slow cooker yet because I don't really want to eat my steak like a roast. But if you do want to do it that way, the recommendation is to sear it before you cook it in the slow cooker. That means you're going to, one, have to defrost it first if you want to get a good sear on the outside, and two, you're going to have to sear it. Whether you pan sear it or you sear it with a flame, you want to sear that meat before you put it in there, because it's going to hold that flavor so much better that you're looking for. According to the research I've done, it really makes a big difference in the flavor. And then there's one final problem with cooking meat in the crock pot for long periods of time, or leaving it on warm for days at a time like I was doing before. And that's that there is a potential of fire hazard. The manufacturer has had some issues with this, so I don't want anybody burning their house down. So I want you to really rethink how long you're gonna leave the crock pot on. I'm gonna miss some of the convenience of leaving it in there for long periods of time. But you know what? I did fine before the crock pot, and I'll do fine now that I'm making the adjustments to it so that we can all be safer and enjoy the most nutrient-dense food that you can get. Delicious meat. But that's all I wanted to talk about on this one, guys. I wanted to be able to share this quick recipe for making these delicious meats with you real fast, and also cover some of those concerns that I had with you. And that's done, so I'm gonna go sit down and eat and enjoy the rest of my meal, and I'll see you guys next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
Be sure to check out Ferrigno Freedom Facebook group. This group is private so that you don't have to worry about all your personal information being shared with all of your friends. We're just here to encourage each other and keep each other on track.